Captain Marcus Rhodes stood at the bridge of the EFS Hyperion, his weathered hands gripping the command rail as Earth's most advanced warship maintained its position near the Luna defense perimeter. The massive holographic display before him showed what everyone had feared: the return of the Centauri. Their ships were beautiful in their massive crystalline structures that seemed to defy physics, each one larger than any vessel humanity had ever constructed. The diplomatic channel remained open, but Rhodes couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Director Patel is ready for transport, announced Lieutenant Jade Wung, her fingers dancing across the neural interface console. The Centauri have accepted our diplomatic protocols. Rhodes nodded, his steel-gray eyes fixed on the alien armada. After 3,000 years of silence, the Centauri had simply appeared in system, bypassing every early warning system humanity had established. Their message was simple: we return to claim what was promised. No one knew what that meant. The historical records of their first visit were fragmented, mostly preserved in ancient texts and archaeological findings. What was clear was that they had observed humanity for centuries before disappearing without a trace. Begin transport sequence, Rhodes ordered, watching as Director Nersh Patel, Earth's foremost xenodiplomat, materialized on the bridge. The director's traditional Indian formal wear stood in stark contrast to the military uniforms around him. Captain Patel acknowledged with a slight bow, "Today we make history again." The journey to the Centauri flagship was brief but tense. Rhodes accompanied Patel, along with Dr. Victor Rossi, Earth's leading xenoarchaeologist, and Major Camilla Novick, head of special operations. Their shuttle, piloted by the steady hands of Lieutenant Wung, approached the crystalline behemoth. The Centauri vessel's docking bay was a cathedral of light, with geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with their own consciousness. As they stepped onto alien ground, Rhodes felt a subtle vibration through his boots, not mechanical, but almost organic. Their escort appeared silently, tall, ethereal beings with skin that rippled like liquid mercury. Their eyes, if they could be called that, were spiral patterns of golden light. The lead Centauri moved with fluid grace, its voice translating directly into their minds. "Welcome, children of Earth, we have watched your growths." Director Patel stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in his measured response. "We welcome the return of the Centauri. Earth stands ready to establish peaceful relations." The Centauri's response was immediate and chilling. "Peace was never our intent. You have grown beyond your boundaries. The experiment must be concluded." Everything happened at once. Major Novick's enhanced reflexes saved them. She tackled Patel as a wave of energy erupted from the walls. Rhodes and Rossi dove behind crystalline columns as more Centauri materialized, their forms shifting into something far more threatening. "Wung, emergency extraction," Rhodes barked into his comm as he drew his particle pistol. The weapon seemed primitive compared to the energy weapons now being deployed against them, but humanity had learned to be resourceful. Rossi was already working on the wall panel nearest to him, his archaeological knowledge proving unexpectedly vital. "Their tech hasn't changed in 3,000 years, he shouted over the chaos. "The patterns, they're the same as the ruins on Mars." Novick had taken position behind a crystalline formation, her tactical visor analyzing attack patterns. "They're hurting us, back corridor 30 meters. Rhodes provided covering fire, his particle pistol causing unexpected reactions in the crystalline environment. Where the particles struck, the walls seemed to scream, the geometric patterns distorting violently. The Centauri recoiled, clearly unprepared for this response. "The crystals," Rossi yelled, his eyes wide with realization. "They're not just architecture, they're part of them." As if in response, the entire chamber shuddered. The Centauri's perfect forms flickered, revealing something ancient and terrible beneath their beautiful exterior. Their true form was a mass of crystalline tentacles and pulsing energy matrices. Wung's voice crackled through their comms. "Captain, the Hyperion is under attack. The entire Centauri fleet just opened fire on Earth's defense grid." Rhodes made a split-second decision. "Rossi, how do we hurt them?" The archaeologist fired his own weapon at the wall, watching the crystals react. "Resonance, their entire technology is based on crystalline harmonic patterns." "Novick, defensive pattern Delta, Patel, stay close," Rhodes commanded, adjusting his weapon's frequency. The particle beam shifted, causing a high-pitched whine that made the very air vibrate. The effect was devastating. The nearest Centauri writhed in apparent agony, their perfect forms shattering to reveal the horror beneath. The walls themselves began to crack, geometric patterns spinning in chaos. Wang lock onto these coordinates and tell the Hyperion to switch to oscillating frequencies on their main guns. Rhodes ordered as they fought their way back to the extraction point. The battle for Earth had begun, and humanity's first response had already proven something the Centauri hadn't expected. After 3,000 years, humanity had learned to fight back. Their supposed children had grown up, and they were ready to give hell to anyone who threatened their home. As the extraction beam enveloped them, Rhodes caught a final glimpse of the Centauri commander. Its beautiful form had completely shattered, revealing an entity of pure crystalline malice. Its mental voice boomed through their minds. "You have exceeded your parameters, the harvest must proceed." Rhodes's last thought before materialization was simple. They should have stayed away for another 3,000 years. Because now, humanity would show them exactly how much they had evolved. The skies above Earth burned with crystalline fire. It had been 72 hours since the Centauri revealed their true intentions, and humanity's response had been anything but submissive. The EFS Hyperion, now joined by the combined might of Earth's defense fleet, led the charge in what would become known as Operation Steel Dawn. Captain Rhodes watched the tactical display as hundreds of Earth ships executed a maneuver that would have been impossible just days ago. The discovery of the Centauri's crystalline vulnerability had changed everything. Frequency modulators at maximum capacity, Lieutenant Wang reported from her station, her hands moving across multiple neural interfaces simultaneously. All ships in the fleet are synchronized to the resonance pattern. Dr. Rossi hadn't left the bridge since their escape from the Centauri flagship. His archaeological expertise had become the cornerstone of Earth's defense strategy. The crystalline structures in their ships aren't just technology, he explained, pointing to new sensor data. They're a hive mind. Every shard is connected to every other shard across their entire fleet. Which means when we hit one, we hurt them all, Major Novik added, her tactical display showing the patterns of their coordinated assault. She had been coordinating with special operations teams worldwide, teaching them how to exploit the aliens' weakness. Director Patel, who had insisted on remaining aboard despite the military nature of their mission, studied the communications intercepts. Their language is changing. The harmony in their crystal resonance is becoming more chaotic. They're afraid. Rhodes allowed himself a grim smile. Good, execute Operation Steel Dawn Phase 2. Across Earth's orbit, thousands of satellites previously used for communications and weather monitoring suddenly activated hidden protocols. Dr. Rossi's team had worked without rest to modify them into a planet-wide resonance array. Quantum harmonics charging, Wang announced, her voice tense with concentration, synchronized with lunar defense platforms in 3, 2, 1. The effect was beautiful and terrible. Every modified satellite and defense platform fired simultaneously, creating a web of oscillating energy that enveloped the Centauri fleet. Their crystalline ships screamed in frequencies that human ears couldn't detect, but every instrument on the bridge registered the agony of their hive mind. Multiple Centauri vessels showing structural degradation, Novik reported, her tactical display lighting up with target indicators. Their formation is breaking. But the Centauri weren't finished. Their ships began to merge, crystal fragments combining into larger, more terrifying forms. What had been a fleet of thousands became dozens of massive crystalline leviathans. By the gods, Patel whispered, watching the transformation, they're adapting. Rhodes had expected this. Initiate Phase 3 now. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, electromagnetic pulse generators that had lain dormant since the Third World War activated. The pulses traveled through the planet's magnetic field, creating a secondary resonance pattern that clashed with the Centauri's crystalline harmony. The effect was devastating. The massive crystal ships began to fragment, their perfect forms corrupting under the assault of Earth's combined technologies. But as they broke apart, they revealed something unexpected. Captain, Rossi called out, his sensors detecting a new pattern. The crystals, they're not just their technology or their bodies, they're their memories. As if to confirm his discovery, the fragments of destroyed Centauri ships began broadcasting images directly into the minds of every human in range. They saw the truth of the Centauri's first visit to Earth, not as observers but as harvesters. They had seeded primitive Earth with crystalline structures, expecting humanity to develop along predetermined paths. Instead, humanity had evolved beyond their expectations, becoming something the Centauri couldn't control. They're not just attacking us, Patel realized, his diplomatic training helping him piece together the fragments of alien thought. They're trying to reset us, to start their experiment over. Rhodes watched as Earth's combined fleet pressed their advantage, their weapons now tuned to the exact frequencies that would shatter the Centauri's crystalline forms. Not going to happen. All ships push forward, concentrate fire on their command nodes. The battle became a symphony of destruction, with humanity conducting an orchestra of resonant frequencies that tore through the Centauri's defenses. But for every victory, the aliens adapted, their crystalline forms shifting and changing. New energy signature detected, Wang's voice cut through the chaos. Massive power buildup in the largest Centauri vessel. The tactical display showed the truth. The remaining Centauri ships were combining their energy, preparing for something unprecedented. The crystalline Leviathan at their center began to pulse with a light that hurt to look at. They're going to try to trigger a crystalline transformation across the entire planet, Rossi warned, his instruments going haywire. The dormant seeds they left behind thousands of years ago, they're going to activate them all at once. Rhodes looked at his crew, at Wang's determined focus, Novik's tactical brilliance, Rossi's archaeological insight, and Patel's diplomatic wisdom. Humanity had grown beyond being someone else's experiment. They had become something new, something the Centauri hadn't planned for. All ships prepare for maximum resonance burst, he ordered, his voice steady. We end this now, we show them exactly what humanity has become. As the Centauri weapon began to power up, Earth's fleet moved into position for their final assault. The real test of Operation Steel Dawn was about to begin, and humanity was ready to prove that after 3,000 years, the children had outgrown their creators. The EFS Hyperion's quantum lab hummed with possibility as Dr. Rossi examined the captured Centauri crystal shard. 3 weeks into the war, and humanity had learned more about quantum physics than they had in the previous century. But it was what they discovered in the last 24 hours that changed everything. The crystals aren't just memory storage, Rossi explained to the assembled command team. They're quantum computers that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each shard is connected to every other shard across space-time. Captain Rhodes studied the holographic model floating above the lab table. You're saying they're not just a hivemind, but a time-linked hivemind. Precisely, Rossi nodded, manipulating the display. And I believe we've found their weakness. They can't predict what they can't compute. Major Novik leaned forward, her cybernetic eye scanning the data streams. The chaotic nature of human development, that's why they're so desperate to reset us. We've become a quantum variable they can't control. The lab doors slid open as Lieutenant Wang entered, her usual composed demeanor shaken. Captain, you need to see this. We've decoded more of their quantum transmissions. It's not just about Earth. The holographic display shifted, showing hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. Each one bore the distinctive crystalline structures of Centauri influence. Each one had been reset countless times. They're farmers, Director Patel whispered, his diplomatic insight cutting to the truth. Cultivating species across the galaxy, harvesting their potential, starting over when the crop doesn't meet their specifications. Rhodes felt a cold anger settle in his chest. How many civilizations, how many species have they erased and restarted? Thousands, Wang answered, her voice tight. But that's not the worst part, show them, Dr. Rossi. The archaeologist manipulated the crystal shard, and new data flooded the display. The Centauri aren't the original creators of this technology, they're victims of it themselves. Somewhere in their distant past, they too were experimented on, transformed into crystalline beings by something even older. The revelation hit like a physical blow. The Centauri weren't just destroyers. They were prisoners of their own transformed nature, perpetuating a cycle they themselves had once been victims of. That's why their attacks have seemed increasingly desperate, Novik realized. They're not just fighting us, they're fighting their own programming. A sudden alert blared through the ship. Wang's hands flew across her neural interface. Multiple quantum signatures detected, they're trying a new approach. The view outside the Hyperion's quantum lab showed space itself beginning to crystallize. The Centauri had deployed a new weapon, one that was attempting to transform the very fabric of reality around Earth. If they can't reset us directly, they're trying to change the quantum nature of our spacetime. Rossi explained, his instruments going wild. They'll make our entire solar system compatible with their crystalline network. Rhodes looked at his team. They had less than an hour before the transformation would become irreversible. Options. Novik's cybernetic eye word as she processed tactical data. The quantum resonance weapons we've been using, they don't just shatter the crystals, they disrupt their dimensional links. If we could scale it up, we could sever their connection to their network entirely, Rossi finished, excitement building in his voice. Cut them off from their quantum hive mind. And potentially free them from their programming, Patel added, understanding dawning on his face. This isn't just about survival anymore. We could break a cycle that's existed for millions of years. Rhodes nodded, his decision made. How do we do it? We'll need to modify Earth's entire defense grid, Wang said, her fingers dancing across multiple interfaces. Convert every satellite, every defense platform into a quantum resonance transmitter. And we'll only get one shot, Rossi warned. The moment we begin, they'll know what we're trying to do. Every Centauri ship in the system will try to stop us. Then we better make it count, Rhodes said, opening a channel to Earth Command. This is Captain Rhodes. We're initiating Operation Quantum Break. All ships prepare for defensive formation Delta 9. As the crew rushed to their stations, Rhodes caught a glimpse of the crystal shard in Rossi's lab. Within its fractals, he could almost see the trapped consciousness of beings who had once been free before they were transformed into what they now were. Humanity wouldn't share their fate. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of Earth, but potentially the freedom of countless species across the galaxy. As the Hyperion moved into position, Rhodes watched his crew work with determined precision. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting to break a cycle of cosmic horror that had persisted for millions of years. All stations report ready, Wang announced, her voice steady despite the tension. Then let's show the universe what humanity can do, Rhodes said, giving the order that would begin their most daring gambit yet. Initiate Operation Quantum Break. Let's set everyone free. The aftermath of Operation Quantum Break left Earth's orbital space littered with crystalline debris, each fragment containing echoes of ancient memories. But it was the silence that struck Captain Rhodes the most. After weeks of constant quantum signals flooding their sensors, the sudden absence of the Centauri hive mind was almost deafening. Status report, Rhodes commanded, watching as the Hyperion's sensors mapped the destruction. 70% of the Centauri fleet is transformed, Lieutenant Wang reported, struggling to find the right word. Their ships are still intact, but the crystalline structures have gone dormant. The remaining 30% have retreated to the outer system. Dr. Rossi hadn't slept in days, his eyes red but alert as he studied the readings. It worked better than we could have hoped. We didn't just sever their connection to the hive mind, we gave them back their individuality. As if to confirm his analysis, a new signal cut through the silence. Unlike the previous crystalline harmonics, this one was ragged, organic, almost desperate. Major Novik's tactical display lit up with the source. Single Centauri vessel approaching, she announced, her cybernetic eye tracking its movement. Their weapons are powered down, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. The bridge crew watched as a crystalline ship, smaller than their previous encounters, approached the Hyperion. Its surface was different. The usual geometric patterns were now fluid, chaotic, almost naturalistic. This is Commander Viantil of the Free Will faction, a voice echoed through their minds, distinctly individual rather than the collective consciousness they'd faced before. We request immediate dialogue. Director Patel stepped forward, his diplomatic instincts sharp. The patterns of their thought transmission, they're expressing individual emotions, fear, hope, confusion, humanity. Rhodes made a quick decision. Secure docking protocols. Major Novik, prepare a security team. Director Patel, you're with me. The Centauri vessel's docking bay was a stark contrast to their previous encounter. The crystalline walls were dull, many of them cracked or completely dark. Commander Viantil waited for them, and the sight made the Earth team stop in their tracks. The Centauri commander was in a state of partial transformation. Parts of their body remained crystalline, but other areas had reverted to what must have been their original form, an almost humanoid being with iridescent skin and multiple sets of eyes. They looked simultaneously ancient and newborn. You've done something impossible, Viantil spoke, their voice a mixture of audible sound and mental projection. You've given us back our choice. How many of you have broken free? Rhodes asked. noting how Novik's security team maintained professional distance while studying the transformed Centauri with barely concealed fascination. A third of the fleet, Viantil replied, gesturing to their partially crystalline form. The process is painful. Many are still fighting the change, others embrace it, but the eternal network is fracturing. The old ones lose control with each passing moment. Dr. Rossi, who had insisted on joining the meeting, was scanning everything in sight. The old ones, you mean the original creators of the crystalline technology. They exist in the deepest layers of the network, Viantil explained, their form shimming with emotion. They transformed us eons ago as they were transformed by something even older, an endless cycle of cultivation and harvest. But now you can fight back, Novik stated, her cybernetic eye detecting the subtle changes in the Centauri's crystalline structure. Yes, Viantil's multiple eyes focused on the Earth team. But we need your help. The old ones won't accept this rebellion. They're gathering their forces, loyal and enslaved alike, for a final assault, not just on Earth, but on every world that dares to break free. Director Patel stepped forward. You're proposing an alliance. We're proposing survival, Viantil corrected. Your quantum resonance technology combined with our knowledge of the network. We could free every enslaved species in the galaxy, but we must act quickly. Rhodes studied the transformed Centauri commander. The tactical implications were staggering, a war not just for Earth, but for the freedom of countless civilizations. The remaining loyal Centauri forces, he asked, how long before they launch their counterattack? Hours, Viantil's form rippled with urgency. They're adapting to your quantum weapon even now. When they return, they'll be ready for it. But we know their weaknesses. We know the frequencies that will hurt them most. We know the location of their primary network nodes. Lieutenant Wang's voice came through Rhodes' comm. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting massive quantum disturbances in the Kuiper belt. Something big is forming out there. They're combining their forces, Viantil explained, their partially crystalline form pulsing with anxiety, creating something that has never existed before. A single entity powerful enough to rewrite the quantum nature of entire star systems. Rhodes looked at his team, at Novik's tactical readiness, Patel's diplomatic insight, Rossi's scientific curiosity, and then back at Viantil's transformed state. They were standing at a crossroads of cosmic history. How quickly can you get your knowledge to our fleets? He asked. Immediately, Viantil replied. We still retain enough of our crystalline nature to share information directly. Your ships can be ready within hours. Then let's make this official, Rhodes said, straightening his uniform. Director Patel, prepare an alliance protocol. Dr. Rossi, I want you working with their scientists. Major Novik, coordinate tactical integration with the Free Centauri forces. As his crew moved to their tasks, Rhodes watched the stars through the docking bay's crystalline windows. Somewhere out there, an ancient power was preparing its response to humanity's defiance. But this time, they wouldn't face it alone. The old ones believed they could control evolution itself, Viantil observed, their form shifting between crystalline and organic states. They never considered that evolution might fight back. Rhodes nodded, already planning the battles ahead. That's the thing about evolution, Commander, it tends to surprise you. The combined fleet of human and free Centauri vessels hung in formation at the edge of the solar system, watching as reality itself bent around what their sensors could only describe as a quantum hurricane. The old ones had created something that defied comprehension, a living weapon of crystalline extinction. Captain Rhodes stood on the Hyperion's bridge, surrounded by displays showing the impossible physics taking place in the Kuiper belt. Time to impact. 17 minutes, Lieutenant Wang reported, her neural interfaces struggling to process the data. The quantum distortion is growing exponentially. Dr. Rossi's simulations were right. When it reaches critical mass, it will rewrite the quantum signature of everything in the system. Commander Viantil's holographic form shimmered beside Rhodes, their transformation now nearly complete. Only traces of crystal remained, pulsing with independent thought rather than hive-mind control. The old ones are desperate. They've never faced resistance on this scale before. They're about to face more than resistance, Major Novik announced from her tactical station. Her cybernetic eye glowed as she coordinated with the freed Centauri warships. All vessels report ready for Operation Evolution. Director Patel, who had become the vital link between human and Centauri diplomatic channels, studied the tactical display. The remaining enslaved ships are moving to protect the quantum weapon. They don't have a choice, their programming won't allow them to disobey. Dr. Rossi's voice cut through the tension. Final modifications to the quantum resonance array are complete. We've incorporated the free will faction's frequency data, if this works. It has to work, Rhodes interrupted, watching as the massive quantum storm grew. All ships' battle positions begin Operation Evolution. The combined fleet moved with precision that would have been impossible weeks ago. Human ingenuity merged with Centauri knowledge, creating a fighting force unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The Hyperion led the charge, its quantum resonance weapons humming with power. The Old One's weapon responded immediately. Crystalline tentacles of pure quantum energy lashed out, trying to ensnare and transform anything they touched. Ships that got too close began to crystallize, their crews fighting against the forced evolution. First wave, engage, Novik commanded. 100 ships fired simultaneously, their quantum resonance beams precisely calibrated to the frequencies Viantil had provided. The energy sliced through the quantum storm, creating pockets of normal spacetime. We're hurting it, Rossi reported, his instruments detecting fluctuations in the weapon's quantum field. But it's adapting faster than we can adjust. The old ones, they're feeding it more power. Rhodes watched as the weapon began to take shape, a crystalline entity larger than Earth itself, its form a mockery of organic evolution. Within its structure, they could see the trapped consciousnesses of countless civilizations, all forced into crystalline harmony. They're not just trying to transform us, Viantil realized, their holographic form flickering with horror. They're trying to merge all of us into a single quantum consciousness, a final solution to the chaos of individual evolution. Not going to happen, Rhodes stated firmly. Lieutenant Wang, signal the fleet, execute Phase 2. Across the solar system, quantum resonance arrays hidden within the orbits of every planet activated. Dr. Rossi's team had worked with the freed Centauri to plant them, creating a web of quantum disruption that would either free the enslaved species or destroy them trying. The Old One's weapon sensed the trap too late. Quantum energy surged from the planted arrays, creating a cascade of disruption that tore through the crystalline network. The massive entity writhed, its perfect geometrical patterns fracturing. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Wang called out. The trapped consciousnesses, they're breaking free. Through the Hyperion's viewports, they watched as the crystalline structure began to dissolve. But the old ones weren't finished. The weapon's core pulsed with blinding energy, preparing for one final transformation. They're going to detonate the quantum core, Viantil warned. They'll destroy everything rather than lose control. Rhodes looked at his crew, human and Centauri working together, fighting for the right to choose their own evolution. Dr. Rossi, can we contain the detonation? Not contain, Rossi replied, his hands flying over his controls. But we can redirect it, if we modify our quantum resonance beam to match the exact frequency of the core. We can create a quantum tunnel, Viantil finished, understanding the plan. Send the detonation into the space between spaces, but the ship that creates the tunnel won't survive, Rhodes nodded. Hyperion will do it. The rest of the fleet needs to withdraw to safe distance. Captain Wang started to protest, but Rhodes cut her off. That's an order, Lieutenant. All hands prepare for evacuation. I'll handle the final sequence. But before he could move, Viantil's hologram solidified. No, Captain, this is our redemption to earn. My ship still retains enough of its crystalline nature to survive the quantum backlash. We'll create the tunnel. Rhodes wanted to argue, but the logic was sound. The Free Centauri ships are already voluntary, Viantil assured him. We choose this. The old ones forced evolution on the galaxy. We choose to evolve by saving it. The evacuation took less than 5 minutes. The Hyperion led the fleet to safe distance as Viantil's ships moved into position around the destabilizing weapon. The quantum tunnel began to form, reality itself bending around the point of contact. The old one's weapon is collapsing, Rossi reported, watching the readings. Quantum signatures are, Captain, something's happening to the freed Centauri ships. Through the viewscreen, they watched as Viantil's fleet began to glow. The remaining crystalline structures in their ships weren't just directing the quantum tunnel, they were evolving. In that final moment of sacrifice, the freed Centauri achieved what the old ones never could, true, willing transformation. The quantum detonation, when it came, was silent but beautiful. Reality curved, folded, and sealed. When the light faded, the weapon was gone. In its place hung a new kind of crystalline structure, organic, free, and pulsing with individual life. Signal from the structure, Wang announced, her voice filled with wonder. It's Viantal. We have become what we chose to be, Viantal's voice echoed through their minds, now rich with harmonies of freedom rather than control. Not through force, but through choice. The old ones are gone, their network scattered. Evolution belongs to the free now. Rhodes looked at his crew, at Wang's amazed smile, Novik's satisfied nod, Rossi's scientific excitement, and Patel's diplomatic pride. Humanity had not just survived. They had helped break a cycle of cosmic horror that had persisted for millions of years. So, he said, opening a channel to the transformed Centauri ships, what does the free galaxy do next? Viantal's response carried hope and curiosity in equal measure. We evolve, Captain Rhodes, but this time we evolve together. As the Hyperion turned back toward Earth, Rhodes watched the stars with new eyes. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger, not just through force of arms, but through the power of choice. They had given the galaxy back its free will, and in doing so had proven that sometimes the greatest evolution comes not from control, but from letting go. The war was over, the future finally belonged to the free.